So why is the current French presidential election important? Well, it's important for a hell of a lot of reasons. Now let us look at what is France going through right now. France is restive. What do I mean by that? Well, la grande nation, the land of the revolution, is again somehow at unease. François Hollande, the current president, is not standing. People don't like him too much. He has the charisma of a pudgy bank clerk. The former president, Nicolas Sarkozy, who came to power promising rupture with the past, has also fallen by the wayside. Well, of course, he was Monsieur Bling Bling. He likes his Rolex watches and pretty models. And it seems the French are not willing to forgive him for that. Anyway, the two characters of the past are out, and there are three figures, two old and one actually quite new. And so who are the two old figures? Well, there's a chap on the right called François Fillon. And who is he? He is someone who served in the government for 200 years. He's a Catholic. He has a Welsh wife, Penelope, and he's involved in a Penelope Gate scandal. Apparently, he paid her money for work she did not do. He also took interest-free loans and didn't tell the French public about it. Well, if he was in Africa, he'd be seen as a rather honest chap, but the French have a little more pernickety attitude to their own leaders than they have to African dictators. Anyway, so Fillon is one chap. Marine Le Pen is the other lady. She is from the far right, and she has succeeded her father, who wasn't particularly fond of the Jewish folks, and who, shall we say, had a reputation for being racist. Now, as in third world countries, the crown has passed within the family to the daughter, who is rather more agreeable. She appears suitably maternal and is expanding her base. And she was leading in the opinion polls. And there's this new character, Emmanuel Macron, who is leading for the first time in the polls. Now, who is this chap? Well, he's a former investment banker. He served as a minister in the socialist government. And he's declared that he will have a woman prime minister. He also said that France's actions in Algeria were a crime against humanity. And of course, Fillon said it was cultural exchange. You can read all about it in an article I wrote. But that's incidental. The fundamental point here is that France is at unease with itself. So, the conventional figures of the left and the right are dead as dinosaurs. Fillon is embroiled in scandal, and the fight is between the far-right contender, Marine Le Pen, and between Emmanuel Macron, who is handsome. He's part of the French elite, l'École nationale d'administration, l'Énarques, the infamous incestuous elite that has run France for most of its post-Second World War history. And so why is this important? It is important because France is deeply divided. And I don't mean the division between Voltaire and Rousseau. That keeps going on and on and on. The Apollonian side of France and the Dionysian side of France. The side that wants everything geometrical, including its gardens, and the side that wants guillotine and blood on the streets. I mean divisions of race, religion, and class. Race is a big factor. The banlieues are full of unemployed Arab youth, some of whom rioted in Paris for 100 days when Sarkozy was in charge. He was then interior minister, and he called them scum. So that's one, race. And immigrants haven't helped, and a lot of them have come from North Africa, former colonials, or former people, people from the former colonies, who have a tortured relationship with France, because France, for all its grand declarations of liberté, égalité, and fraternité, is also a country which is deeply racist, in particular vis-à-vis the Arabs, or vis-à-vis the North Africans. So race is a big fault line. Second is religion, which ties in a bit with race, or completely, some would say, with race. And there is a real fear of Islam, particularly after attacks in Paris and elsewhere. So France is now reasserting its secular identity, laicity. Last year, actually, burkinis became a big deal. And of course, the French believe that bikinis are better than burkinis, and if you're wearing a burkini, you should strip off and be liberated and wear a bikini. Now, a lot of people would have sympathy with that argument, but the women who are asked to strip off aren't exactly jumping up and down in joy. Neither are their communities, because they come from slightly conservative religious backgrounds. So religion is a big dividing point, and it's not the usual Catholic or Christian Muslim divide as in other societies. This is a divide between a secular French state and a religious minority. And the third is, of course, class. France, for all its roaring economy, is a country with over 10% unemployment since 1980. The state is huge, or as Donald Trump would say, huge. And what does that mean? It means that people like Macron rule the roost, people like Macron decide how the country will be led, and the country has a terrific welfare state. To be fair, the healthcare system in France is absolutely wonderful, especially when you compare it to the terrible lack of healthcare in India, or the grotesque inflation in cost and the heartless lack of care for the poor in the US. But the elite in France, les narqués, so the les narqués have decided that the social contract runs something like this. You get a wonderful cradle-to-grave welfare state, and we get to preserve our glass ceiling. What does that mean? Well, if you're born poor, you're born Arab, you're a Muslim, you're not going to rise too much to the top. And new aspirations mean that this entire welfare state is under strain, and the economics of France and the huge debt burden mean that France is under strain. Insecurities and worries for the future are dominating France. France wants a change. Macron is promising change. We don't know if he'll end up like Sarkozy. He's slick, he's young, he's good looking, he's an NRK. Everything points to the fact that he's an establishment chap. He doesn't have the background of a Napoleon, or a Napoleon as we'd say in English. He does not have the record of a radical. And so perhaps what we'll see in the election is a choice between a radical like Marine Le Pen, who raises fears of racism, bigotry, and hatred, and Macron, who will try to preserve what has been going on. So perhaps the French will see yet another of plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose, something that Jean-Baptiste Alphonse Carr said in January 1849 after the 1848 revolution in Le Guêpe, and it translates as, the more things change, the more they remain the same. On that note, this is Atul Singh, founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief of Fair Observer, signing off. Do watch us, share us, and like us. All the best. Bye.